his run along with our partners and associates. And I also give open the ceremony that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his slave servant messenger, and seal the Prophet's peace be upon the Prophet, upon his descendants, upon his companions, and upon the righteous throughout the world. And peace be unto you. As-salamu alaykum. When we give this very powerful and illustrious greeting, we're saying much more than the peace. When we give this greeting, we have to realize that there's a very important principle or a very important attribute that comes through this greeting. When we say Assalamu alaikum, we're saying, literally, may the peace that flows from Allah, the source of peace, be upon your life. Now, as fundamentally as that sound is very profound, and it is very powerful because that's what the human being longs for. The human being longs for peace. In fact, people go to war for peace, to establish peace. This is why Allah says, even if there's a conflict, if one is the most aggressive, then all of those involved should go against the aggressor. Because the human being needs peace to grow. He can't function without peace. So our whole lives are consumed with this principle of salam. So we give this greeting, we say, Assalamu alaikum, may the peace that comes from the source of peace. Allah's as-salam, that's one of his attributes. May the peace that comes from the source of peace be over your life. When you look in the world, you look in society, you go into a troubled world. You go into the world of tension, a world of war, a world of brutality, a world of addiction, a world of insensitivities. You need Allah's peace over your life. So every day we constantly remind each other, every time we greet each other, Assalamu alaikum. Listen, this is very important, very carefully. May the peace that comes from the source of peace be on you. See, Allah know you need that. Because see, if we was able to look into people's minds, it'll blow your mind. If you was able to look at what a person is going through and the kind of thoughts that people have every single day, it would disturb you. People walking by you troubled, weighed down, worryation, tension, stress. You don't know their challenge. You don't know if they're going to be faced with tomorrow. They may be kicked out their home. They may lose their car. They may lose their health. You don't know what's troubling them. So we say every single encounterment, Assalamu alaikum. I don't know what you're going through, but I pray Allah peace is on your life. Without me being aware of what's happening in your world, I pray Allah's peace be on you so you can function effectively, because if there's no peace, there's problems. So when we give this greeting, we have to be conscious of what are we actually saying. In fact, it's a prayer that we're saying to one another. I'm praying that Allah will secure you, because that's one of the meanings of the word salam. It means security. See, we follow a life and we live a life of security. As-salam is security also as well as peace. Because if you have peace, you have security. You have confidence. You represent strength, internal strength. So when we give this greeting, you don't know what you may be doing for a person's mind and their spirit when you say, Assalamu alaikum. I pray Allah's peace be on your life, if you understand what's being said. So our life is heavily influenced by this one principle. This one principle dominates our lives, and that is the principle of peace. Some people go to war to establish peace. Because if there's no peace, there's very little progress. So Allah said that He will allow this way of life of Al-Islam to prevail. In fact, it says that Al-Islam is the fastest growing way of life in the entire world. In fact, He said that He will make it prevalent, even though the polytheists detest, they dislike. But Allah said He will allow the way of life that's governed by peace to prevail, because it is consistent with the nature of the human being. And that was the whole purpose of the fast. The whole purpose of the fast during the month of Ramadan is to get us back in touch with natural living. See, because if there's no natural living, ain't no peace. But when you get back to natural living and understand that your purpose in that process is to preserve life, you begin to appreciate life. So the whole month of fasting was to get us in the mindset of preserving the sacredness of life. This is why Allah says, in the Quran, He says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book. In it is guidance, sure without doubt, to those who are conscious of Allah, the muttaqi, or the muttaqin. See, you are the one who work to preserve life. You understand that there's competing forces every day working to destroy your life. We talked before that you have to realize that you do have an enemy. See, most people don't want to accept this idea that you have a constant movement coming towards you of an enemy that's working to destroy your life. And everything about Ramadan was getting you prepared to preserve the life. You came into this consciousness of taqwa. And that is the protecting force. Without that, there's death and decay. If you have no God consciousness, life is over. That's why that little boy that went in that church in South Carolina, ain't no God consciousness in him. God consciousness will not allow you to go among decent, God-conscious people and cause them harm. God consciousness will not allow those who profess to be Muslims to go and bomb a masjid. See, taqwa won't allow it to happen. Taqwa is about preserving life. So Allah says that the muttaqi, or the muttaqin, are those who work diligently to preserve the sacredness of life. In fact, the first law of nature is self-preservation. That everything in creation works to preserve itself. The animal instinct allows it to work to preserve itself. That's why before you get anywhere near the animal moves. Because instinct says, I have to preserve my life. So Allah has already clocked into the human being. He's clocked into everything in creation, a preserving force, because that life is valuable. See, when Allah created you and everything else in creation, He gave it a great purpose. And if He gave it a great purpose, He also gave it a mechanism to preserve the purpose. If there's no mechanism to preserve the purpose, then that life begins to lose its value. That's why man has to come into a greater level of consciousness where he works to preserve his life. You know, there's a verse or a few verses in the Quran where Allah talks about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he says, did He not find you an orphan and give you shelter? And found you groping, so He showed you the way. And found you in want, so He enriched you. And that drive to find His way, the groping, looking for direction, led Muhammad the Prophet, peace be upon him, into that hole, into that cave where he got with himself. He was troubled by the conditions of the world. And that trouble that he experienced because of the conditions of the world led him to migrate, to move away from the pain of that society, of the war, of the alcohol abuse, of the little girl abuse, of men burying their baby girls alive, of all the disrespect to life. it moved him away from that, and he went into a womb. It was in that womb that he had this great life-changing experience. It was in that womb that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, began to receive this process of revelation called Quran. It was at that moment that he had an experience where Jibreel told him, read. Muhammad, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, I cannot read. And the story goes on that Jibreel squeezed him, and when Jibreel squeezed him, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, those words begin to come forth from the mouth of Muhammad the Prophet. The process of revelation began at that moment during the month of Ramadan. That is, after that experience, and he came out of the womb, out of the cave, and he was shook up. And he went to his wife and he related the experience. And his wife said, you're a good man and God would do nothing wrong to you. But he's troubled because he don't understand what's actually taking place. He has a life-altering experience. And it was Khadija's uncle that told him, you are the messenger of Allah. He's looking for direction. He's looking for purpose. He's looking for aim. And it's in that experience that God gave him his assignment. We talked before to you about in that womb called Ramadan that you pray to Allah that Allah would expose you to your purpose and your assignment in life. And when he went to his uncle, he said, you are the messenger of Allah. See, sometimes people would have to tell you what you can't see about yourself. Age is not a fact. It doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes people have to tell you about what you can't see about yourself. And he said that you are the messenger of Allah. Do you know how powerful it is? When you're told that it is your assignment, it is your purpose to deliver a message. That's what the world needs. The world needs a better message. When you look at the state of the world, the condition of the world, the insensitivity of the world, the coldness of the human being, they need a better message. A message that will stimulate life. A life-giving message that will show man that there's a better life. As we study the world, we'll see that man has been conditioned to accept death-producing messages. Moral death, social death, economic death, political death, emotional death, spiritual death. See, he's giving death-producing messages. And Allah said that Muhammad is his messenger. So, wanted to clearly state that this was what Muhammad experienced during that month of Ramadan. He came out of the womb with his assignment. Now, if we fast for 29 or 30 days, how do we come out of that womb? Do we come out of that womb with the desire to serve? Do we come out of that womb with the desire to make a greater impact and a greater contribution in the world? Or do we come out of the womb and everything's still the same? The Bible says, and you are the salt of the earth. If you know what the salt of the earth means, I want to read the verse to you. The verse says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how can it be made salty again? It is good for nothing except to be thrown out and walked on by men. Now, what is the purpose of salt? I gave you from the very premise that you are, according to the Quran, the Mutakin. You are those who work to preserve life. Allah says he's with those who are conscious of him. That's the Mutaki. It said, the verse says, and you are the salt of the earth. What is the purpose of salt? Don't you know salt is a preserving sauce? A preserving sauce, that salt is used to keep the meat from becoming infected with bacteria, so that the meat doesn't lose its power. Because if you don't put salt on the food, on the meat, the food can become consumed and overtaken by bacteria. And when the food is overtaken by bacteria, then it has no purpose. It's finished, it's dead. So the verse says, and you are the salt of the earth. If you are removed from the earth, if you lose your power, then you're not effective in the world. Then you can't work to preserve the great power Allah put in this creation called human being. That's why we said, Muhammad said his mission was to deliver the message. And those who see themselves as the salt of the earth, they realize that their purpose is to impact the world. If they don't impact the world, then the world begins to lose its power because it doesn't have the preserving force working for it. You are the salt of the earth. You are the mutakin. You are those who are conscious of their relationship with Allah, and because of that consciousness, they're conscious of their relationship with everything He created. And your relationship with everything else will be influenced by the relationship you have with Allah. A conscious person who's conscious of his duty to Allah don't abuse people. It's too conscious. It's too much of awareness. In fact, they live themselves with an awareness of consequences. If I do this, there's consequences for my action. So that's what keeps us in check. So Allah is saying that if we are the God conscious, then the God conscious work to preserve life because they realize that everything in existence has a great purpose. And if we don't work to preserve the sacredness of that purpose, then we can't benefit from it. So the verse says, but if the salt has lost its power or has lost its taste, how can it be made salty again? See, if you lose your power, how can you regain it? You regain your power by reconnecting to the source of power. When man becomes disconnected from Allah, he loses power. He loses spiritual power. He loses moral power. He loses economical power. He loses intellectual power. Once he becomes reconnected with Allah, then he begins to regain his power. So it says, but if the salt has lost its taste, how can it be made salty again? And that's the question. If you feel your power is wavering, if you feel that you become weakened, you have to reconnect with the source. And once we reconnect with the source, Allah said He'll refuel us. Because He said He wants us to assume the position of power in the world. He said, and those who, if we establish them with power in the land, will make the salat and pay the zakat. You know how powerful that is right there? He said, those who, if we establish them with power in the land. See, Allah wants you to have power. You can't serve Allah and not represent power. That's why I say if the salt loses taste, how can it be made salty again? If you're the salt of the earth and you lose your salt, you lose your power, God is saying you can get it back. Because from the very beginning, He wants you to have power. Because you can't influence in the world without power. If you're a servant of Allah, we should have power. So He says, those who, if we establish them with power in the land, will make the salat and pay the zakat. And what does that mean? That means that when some get power, they lose their connection with Allah. When some get power, they say, well, I'll get with God later. When they get political power, material power, social power, I have no time for religion. I'll do that later. And then he says that they will establish salat, because without the salat, there's no preserving false. When you stop making salat, you know, cracks become in your wall. When you stop making salat, the door of major problems is become a part of your life. The salat holds you up. The salat preserves the integrity of your life. When you stop making your salat, your life changes. Because now you're not living with consciousness. You're not even living with discipline. You're not living with a very manageable life. One thing salat do outside of the spiritual connection, salat allows you to have structure in your life. Salat allows you to have discipline in your life. So he says, those who, if we give them power in the land, will stay connected to Allah, they make the salat, and then they'll pay the zakat. You know how important that is? That means not only do they stay connected to Allah, but they stay connected to people. See, most people don't mind being separated from people. Most people don't mind being insensitive. They don't feel for people. That's why Allah puts zakat in your life, so you can feel for another human being. Zakat means I feel for you. Zakat means I care about your well-being. Zakat means I'm not cold. See, because everything in the creation is giving. The sun, the rain, the trees, everything is giving. So Allah has already clocked in your nature a giving spirit. And when we don't give, when we become insensitive, there's no strong connection with other human beings. We don't care anymore. And that's why you see so many problems in human beings, because they become cold and callous. They've separated themselves from being connected to other human beings. So he said, those who, if we establish them with power. See, if you get power, stay connected to Allah. If you get power, stay connected to people. And then when you stay connected to Allah and you stay connected to people, Allah will give you more power. You understand what that means? That you can't serve God properly and not have power in your world. I'm not talking about street power. I'm talking about real social power, real economic power, real spiritual power, real power where people want to know what's going on in your life. There's something about you that I admire. It's your integrity, it's your morality, it's your decency, it's your respect, because Allah wants you to prosper. And part of your prosperity is to have power. So Allah says, those who, if we establish them with power in the land, will make the salat and pay the zakat. So here's the remaining part of this verse about the salt. It is good for nothing except to be thrown out and walked upon by people. So you become weak. See, when you lose your power, you become weak. And you believe it or not, that has become the state of many Muslims in America. No power. When something is walked upon, they will tell you, you let people walk over you. You're weak. And when people walk over you, you don't represent power. Because the very verse, the very premise of the salat that we talked about, when we call this ikama, it means to stand up. When you call the ikama for salat, it means to stand up. See, when you stand up, you don't let people walk over you. But when you lose your power, the salt is thrown out except to be thrown out and walked upon by man. Muslims lose schools, lose businesses, have no real social power because they're disconnected from the source of life. And when they don't have this consciousness of what Imam Muhammad taught us about, and not just a community, but they don't have this consciousness of community life. See, there's a big difference with realizing a community and living community life. And that's what we have to get to. We have to get to understanding what it means to be having community life. We live as a community. In other words, that community is those group of people who share the same story. That community can be Asian, that community can be Malaysian, that community can be Africans, that community can be people from Ghana, people from China, people from America, African Americans. This is a community who share the same story. And that story is realizing that Muhammad the prophet went out there after he received the revelation and delivered the message and transformed the world. So we share that same story. We share the same story of the man who was lost, who the verse said, we found you wandering, and then gave you guidance, and found you in need and gave you plenty. We don't live in a world of lack. We live in a world of abundance. We should build good relationships. That's what we're talking about, the zakat. We build good relationships and good integrity and good respect that if you don't have, you have enough faith and enough confidence that you can call on your brother or sister and ask, can you help me? Because the verse in the Bible says, you have not because you ask not. Did you hear that? See, most of us are not asking enough. Some of us have too much pride to ask because God says, did we not find your need and we gave you? That Allah used other human beings to serve other human beings. That's why I said those, they establish salat, they connected to the source of life, and they give the zakat, they're connected to people. They feel for people. They empathize with people. They care for people. Imam Muhammad said that life begins with concern. And the life and death of a people is seen in their concern. How much concern you have for people? How much are you willing to inconvenience yourself for people? How much are you willing to sacrifice for other people? Because the more you're willing to give of yourself, the more Allah will enrich you. And most people won't give because they don't have enough faith in the process. They believe if they give, I'm going to be poor, I'm going to be broke, I'm going to be without. That's why the verse in the Quran, Allah said that Shaitan threatens you with poverty. See, when Shaitan make you feel if I give, I ain't going to have nothing for myself. If I give, I'm going to be broke. But Allah said, He's Ar-Razak, He is the provider. The verse said already, He found Muhammad in need and then He enriched him. Don't you know if you enrich Muhammad, He'll enrich you? If you're doing the work of Muhammad, if you're serving the people, and you're motivated by the principle that none of you truly believe until you love and want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. So that's powerful motivation there. The hadith said that you really don't believe until you want for people just like you want for yourself. You believe, but you really don't believe. You think you believe. Because this life is all about moving beyond your own little concerns. This life is about entering into the world of other people. That's why you have zakat in your life. Zakat says, I'm moving beyond myself. And I'm going to enter into your world because I care about you. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So he says, and we found you in want, so he enriched you. And Allah will enrich you. You don't know when it's coming, but he said he wants you to prosper. The verse says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, and be conscious of Allah that you may prosper. He wants you to prosper. Everything about your life is about prosperity. When it's coming, Allah knows best, but he wants you to prosper. That's why when you hear that call every day, and when you study the exam, it's a call that knocks on the conscience of the human being. And that call begins with letting you know who's most important in your life. Allahu Akbar. That's big right there. See, whatever you're going through, whatever your challenges, whatever your pain is, God is bigger than that. Allahu Akbar. You say Allahu Akbar. And then after that we move to bear witness and shadow and la ilaha illallah. There's no force, no power, no being that is more worthy of your devotion other than Allah. See, that right there is not just a declaration of faith, it's a declaration of freedom. There's no power, there's no force, there's no being, there's no person, there's no personality, there's no thing that is greater in your life other than Allah. That's big right there. That's a constant reminder that you have to be free. Because there's forces working to lock you up. Don't think because you call yourself a Muslim, you're safe. You read the verse in the Quran where Shaitan said he will sit in front of you, he will sit behind you, he will sit on your right hand and your left. You ain't free. You're free to the extent that you stay closely connected to Allah. Now, we done seen those who profess big-time Islam leave al-Islam, went to the church, went to nothing, don't believe no more. But they were sitting right where you're sitting at right now. So here's a constant reminder that shadow and lie. No, 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 no. See, if you can't say no, you go into bondage. If you are not strong enough to resist, you go into slavery. It is an ongoing movement to recruit people into bondage every day. That's why Malcolm X said there wasn't just slavery, but there was a slave-making process. There's a process in motion that's designed to produce slaves 24/7. A slave-making process, just like an assembly line. They get them every single day. So that call is a call for real prosperity because it begins with the idea of reminding you and letting you know who's greater in your life. Who's greater in the world? Allahu Akbar. He's greater. And when you bow down and you submit your will to the greatest force in life, he lifts you up and you begin to experience greatness as a human being. That's what we're working for. We're working to release greatness. So Shadu la ilaha illallah, then we move to Shadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Here I bear witness that Muhammad shows me how to be a better human being by listening to the message that he delivered. Shadu la ilaha illallah, but Shadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. We said that Muhammad delivered a life-giving message that stimulates the human being to come alive. Come alive morally, come alive socially, come alive intellectually, come alive politically, come alive spiritually. He must experience life. That's what this call is about. Shadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat. Come alive to the prayer that gives you the reconnection with your God. Come alive to prayer that gives you the focus, the regulation, and the discipline you need to make it in the world. Hayya ala salat. That prepares you to move next to us, Hayya ala falah. Come lively for the cultivation of the life God put in your body. He put life potential from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Here's a reminder, Hayya ala falah. Come to cultivation just like the farmer goes out there and get the soil ready to receive the seed so the seed can produce the life that is inside of it. But in order for that seed to produce the life, it has to be in the right environment. We have to produce the right environment that will activate and stimulate the life that's inside that seed that goes into that soil. How you ready for that? The verse is, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. You hear the word falah? From the falahin, the farmer that goes out there and tills that soil and makes sure that soil gets sunlight, it gets the rain, it's irrigation so the life can grow and make its contribution to the world. Allah says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. He wants you to prosper. And you got to work towards prosperity. Just like that farmer goes out there, he got to put the work in, you got to put work in. That's why Allah always says he will reward. But he reward the workers. Enter into you my paradise, my devotees. Enter you my workers, enter into you my paradise. Paradise is for the workers, not for those who just accept faith. But those who are going out there putting the work in. And when you put the work in, Allah said, He's going to reward you for the effort. So how much work you putting in? That's the question. If you put the work in, just like Allah said He will enrich Muhammad, He's going to enrich you. He's not stingy. We live in a world of abundance where Allah has put so much into His creation. All we got to do is tap into it. And when we tap into it, and tap into the power He put in our bodies, we will realize prosperity. He says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And be conscious of Allah that you may prosper. So how you say that? How you for that? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Here's the reminder again. The closeout. The reminder, Allah is bigger than your problems. He has to remind us. He has to remind us. That's why we begin the khutbah talking about you don't know what a person is faced with. You don't know what's troubling their soul. And they wake up to a call that says, whatever's troubling your soul, Allah is bigger than that. Because He said that He will make a way for you where you thought there could never be a way. You couldn't see your way out, but Allah said He'll make a way for you. Oh, this is powerful. You read this revelation and do something for your spirit. You thoroughly read this Quran, let it become a part of your soul and your thinking. It will do something for your spirit and realize Allah said He'll make a way for you where you thought there can never be a way. Oh, that's why He said about the fire with Ibrahim. They would to put Ibrahim in the fire. To burn Ibrahim, they couldn't imagine. We're going to set him on fire. We're going to destroy him. And Allah said, fire be cool. And the means of safety for Ibrahim. They couldn't understand it. Allah said, He'll make a way for you where you thought there could never be a way. You couldn't even figure out how I'm going to make this happen. How is this going to get better? Allah said, He'll make a way. That's why faith is so important. He'll make a way for you. So it says, Allahu Akbar, twice. Allahu Akbar, twice. Confirmation, He's greater. And then it says, La ilaha illallah. No force, no being worthy of devotion other than Allah. See, it ends with that. It ends with a reminder you got to be free. La ilaha illallah. If you're not free, you can't get the most from what God has given you. See, a slave can't maximize his life. Because a slave is under the authority of other people. Allah said you must be free in order to get the most from the life I gave you. So we work for freedom. Let me leave you with this hadith about giving, why giving is so important. We have to give. We give to the masjid so the masjid can be stronger to do the work it's destined to do to serve people. Muhammad the Prophet said a generous person is closer to God, closer to paradise, closer to people, and far from hell. A stingy person is far from Allah, far from paradise, and far from people, and closer to hell. You get that right there? Allah said that a generous person is close to Allah, closer to paradise, closer to people, and far from hell. A stingy person, you can feel a stingy person's spirit. Have you ever felt people's spirit? You can feel a generous and a giving person's spirit. And you can feel a stingy person's spirit. And people are not really attracted to stingy people because stingy people are holding back when they should be giving. So it says, a stingy person is far from Allah, far from paradise, and far from people and closer to hell. An illiterate person is dearer to Allah than a pious, stingy person. See, a person who's not even very knowledgeable, they're closer to Allah than the person who have and won't give. Because everything Allah gave you, He gave it to you so you can share it with other people, not for yourself. That selfishness is not a good act. And what the zakat does is zakat purifies your soul. It rids yourself of the coldness, of the selfishness, of arrogance. And I want to share. That's why the President Barack Obama had to tell him, one guy, he's talking about the health care, he said, he tapped him on, he said, let's share the wealth. He just thought the guy was agitated. Why we have to give? He said, let's share the wealth. That's what he said. This project, let's share. Let's. I know you're rich, man. Let's help other people. You know, I want you to think about helping another human being. Let's share the wealth. That's what we have to do. We share the wealth, and when you do that, Allah will allow more increase to flow into your life. Allahu
Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على